Genome series, Alexandria Delacroix, The Executioner Chronicles, Part 1, The Birth of the 13th Eternal. Chapter 1, The Hunter and the Hunted. A streak of lightning lit up the sky over Delaunay as the rain poured relentlessly against the roof of Auguste Villier's car. With a slow, wet screech, his car eased to a stop just before the intersection at Batelli and Sombe. Just up ahead, the way into Sombe was being blocked by a pair of the auditors' patrol cars and a number of auditors redirecting the oncoming traffic back down Batelli. But obviously, the incessant flashers on the patrol cars did nothing to dismay those curious enough to check out what was going on. Many people gathered closely. Even those that had been directed to drive away had only parked their cars on the side of the street, had gotten out to see. "Like moths to a flame," Auguste muttered as he lit a cigarette. With the crowd continuing to grow and no means to move forward, Auguste pulled his car over to the side of the street, shut it off, and drew his coat closer to his neck as he prepared to step outside. He pushed his way through the crowd as best he could until a pair of hands pushed him back just before his foot could cross over onto Sombe. "Hold it there, sir. I'm going to have to ask you and everyone else gathered to disperse immediately. This entire area is under restricted access by order of Chief Auditor Inspector Villier." Auguste got a quick look over the patrolman's shoulder. About 7 patrol cars were lined up down the length of Sombe, running up to Vidal, and another 3 passed down the upper end of Batelli. And from this, Auguste surmised that there must be at least 16 more running the other side of the perimeter on Daphne Avenue. About halfway up Sombe, a tent had been erected with a number of electric lamps set up. The tent had been placed before the only house that had both its lights on and its door open. A number of auditors passed in and out of the house, along with a team of paramedics. The patrolman once again pushed against Auguste's shoulders. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." With a huff, Auguste pulled on his collar of his coat to reveal the signature blue of his uniform beneath, and with his other hand, he pulled out a silver badge from his pocket. "I'm Sentinel Second Lieutenant Auguste Villiers. New orders have been sent down from Major Nicole Chaumont regarding the situation. The threat level has been raised to code black thanks to a report sent out by Inspector Villier. Unless you want this issue to go from bad to worse, I have to insist that you let me through to speak with your commanding officer," he said as he spied the black and silver bar badge on the young man's collar. "Corporal." "Yes, sir," the patrolman said as he snapped a quick salute. "Right this way." The military's here? What could have happened? You don't think it was the Communion, do you? An attack by the Communion? But I thought we had a treaty with them." Auguste could hear their gossip growing behind him, but that did not matter right now. At the moment, the situation on Sombe was a bit more dangerous than the terms of a treaty that had been settled 12 years ago. As Auguste drew closer to the tent, he took notice of the rather stern, no-nonsense look on the chief inspector's face. For the longest time, Auguste could only remember seeing him with that look. Not even so much as a smile came across his face. The two had shared many classes together at Western Delaunay Academy, worked a number of cases since graduation upon becoming field officers, but it seems as though Chief Inspector Jonathan Burrell had not changed one bit. It always seemed as though Jonathan's ego never allowed anyone to approach him, especially Auguste. The colors of their uniforms was proof enough of that, and the distance only grew as Auguste earned himself a full 2 ranks promotion following the success of the last investigation that the two had been involved in. But nonetheless, the situation called for teamwork, and the two could not act alone. And so, upon looking up and seeing Auguste tossing aside his cigarette, Jonathan straightened himself and adjusted the glasses perched on his nose. "Chief Inspector," Auguste greeted Jonathan. "Second Lieutenant," Jonathan returned. "May the order of Andreas Animidus stand ever firm and resolute in the fear, and danger," the two pledged, placing their balled fists of their right hand over their hearts respectively. "How's the situation look?" Auguste stated, looking towards the house. "The house belongs to the Delacroix family. I believe you're familiar with them?" "Yeah, Lucas, good man. Why, what's wrong?" "About 3 hours ago, an unidentified assailant forced their way in and proceeded to assault Miss Delacroix. It looks to be similar to the Montvalel case." "The torture case? But it's been 3 months. Why would the killer suddenly stir up trouble again?" That is irrelevant. At the moment, we have the block under surveillance and have pressed the suspect. So far, they have not made any moves, but I wouldn't count on them staying here for very long. It's only a matter of time before a breach is made. Assuming the worst of your reports from the assault, it appears we have a Mangiagoræ running free, correct? I had hoped that it wasn't the case, but my assumptions are usually never wrong in these matters. I hope you have a team assembled and ready to deploy? Always. However, I'm not sure if the assigned members will be prepared for the debriefing. What do you mean? The agents selected are David Royer and Lucas Delacroix. They were among the only members available. Dear God. And his wife was pregnant as well. I know. Frankly, due to the extent of the damage done, I'm not sure if she'll make it. The thing practically ripped her apart, Auguste. It comes with the territory, John. You have to cut yourself off if you're going to deal with these monsters. If you don't, you'll end up just as hurt as the people you try to save. A loud blare echoed from the Somme and Batelli intersection as a large van slowly rolled up the street. Looks like my team has arrived. Before the van could come to a complete stop, the rear doors burst open, and a young man in a black uniform, with silver van braces and greaves, rushed out and into the house. Also from the van emerged 5 more, with 3 cloaked in black uniforms and 2 in blue. "Sir!" they saluted before Auguste. "Men, this is not a routine operation. According to the reports, we may be dealing with the leading suspect of the Montvalel case. Royer, Menard, Ponce, I want you to split up and cover the 3 sides of the block and ensnare the suspect. Take care to ensure its capture. Giraud and Aveline, you'll secure the perimeter along the Somme. Absolutely no one is to leave until either the suspect is captured or dead, or we're 6 feet under. Do I make myself clear?" "Sir, yes, sir!" Immediately, Royer, Menard, and Ponce rushed to their positions to surround the block, as Giraud and Aveline began coordinating the auditors to set up a blockade. Auguste pulled out a medium-caliber handgun from his pocket and began loading salt-tipped rounds. As he chambered the last round, the man who had rushed into the house emerged. His face was solemn but grim, and his eyes were like fiery coals. "Delacroix, your orders are to capture the Mangiagoræ. I want you to avoid killing as much as possible." The man drew a pair of 2-foot-long silver swords from the scabbards on his waist. "That won't be possible, sir." "Very well, then. Just make sure that it doesn't escape." "Sir, yes, sir!" Lucas quickly raced down the steps from his door and into the shadows of the alley behind his house, leading into the maze of narrow passages behind. "It's going to be a long night," Auguste sighed. With steely eyes, Lucas raced forward into the darkness as the rain beat down relentlessly on his shoulders. His legs and feet were little more than a blur as his eyes scanned every inch of the shadows. As he came to an intersection, he paused only for a moment to find a clue as to the direction of the Mangiagoræ took when he heard a voice. "I thought I could smell you on her. She practically reeked of your stench. Frankly, I almost passed her up when I caught wind of it. But when I learned that she was the wife of an executioner, well, how could I resist? It was almost comical the way she kept trying to threaten me with your arrival. Luckily, a little heated iron shut her up. And it was all the sweeter seeing that she carried the spawn of an executioner in her gullet. It would have made a fine meal, cooked from the roasting fat of that cow if the auditors hadn't been called in to interrupt me. I'll see you burn, you abomination! I'd like to see you try." The voice of the Mangiagoræ sounded so near, and yet it felt like it was coming from every direction, and the dark of the night and the tight passages of the alley were not helping anything. From somewhere up ahead of him, David called out, "Lucas, don't you dare listen to him! Remember your training. A skillful hand favors the calm mind that controls it." But Lucas was, by now, far beyond adhering to the discipline of his training. What this Mangiagoræ had done was far beyond forgivable, far beyond any redemption that could be offered, far beyond any mercy that only a saint could bestow. And not only did the Mangiagoræ know it, but he reveled in it. Hearing Lucas's cries of anger and anguish, to see the tears that fell down his cheeks, mixing together with the rain, only delighted him. And it was because of this that Lucas could not allow him to live. It was so much fun, carving her up like a holiday goose and then closing her up with that exquisitely designed gilded fireplace broad. Her every scream was like music. "Lucas!" came the voice of Isabel Ponce. Like David, she too had worked alongside Lucas for many years and understood just how much pain he was feeling, as she too had lost a family member to the Mangiagoræ. And just like him, her anger had gotten the better of her and blinded her from her mission. "Remember how you helped me. Don't let your anger consume you." But he refused to listen. Racing faster and faster, his blades scraped along the brick walls beside him, letting out horrendous screeches and sparks. But Lucas was, by now, deaf to everything but the taunts of the Mangiagoræ. Coming to an open space betwixt the houses, Lucas finally became able to see the sky. And not only that, he caught sight of his target. Standing atop a house on the far side of the lot, garbed in a ragged coat, was the Mangiagoræ. A bolt of lightning lit up the sky as bright as noonday, allowing Lucas to see every inch of the monstrous form of the creature. Barely human in shape, the Mangiagoræ bore terrible teeth as sharp as daggers that pierced from a lipless jaw. His hands bore claws drenched in fresh blood all the way up past his elbows, and his eyes glowed like ghostly lanterns with white flames. Like all Mangiagoræ, he still bore some resemblance to the human he once was before being infected and thus becoming a monster. A man somewhere between 20 or 30 years of age, with dark hair and a thin but athletic form. If anything, had he not been infected and succumbed to the appetite for flesh of a Mangiagoræ, he may very well have been a fine addition to the executioners. But that was neither here nor there at this point. All that mattered was that he be captured and or killed before he could harm anyone else. With the illumination brought on by the lightning, both Lucas's and the Mangiagoræ's eyes locked, with Lucas's bloodshot from tears and adrenaline, and the Mangiagoræ's glowing with sadistic delight. "Lucas!" David called as he emerged from an alleyway far from Lucas, but within sight of the Mangiagoræ. Having caught sight of the Mangiagoræ, David pulled out a small gun from his belt and fired a round into the air. After a few seconds, the shot burst into a burning red light, illuminating the entire lot. Within moments, Isabel and Remy emerged from the shadows. "Don't let him escape!" David ordered as he took command. "Remy, cover his escape. Isabel, you and I will flank him." But before Remy or Isabel could take a step, Lucas bolted headlong at the Mangiagoræ, and with a sneer, the Mangiagoræ ducked out of sight. A small shed sat at the base of the house from where the Mangiagoræ stood, and above that was a drain pipe leading all the way up to the roof. As Lucas reached the shed, he thrust himself upwards. Like all executioners, he had trained his body to exceed well beyond normal human limitations. With one bound, he had reached the roof of the shed, and immediately started scaling the drain pipe. Taken aback by Lucas's charge, David immediately regained his composure and raced forward, followed by Isabel and Remy. Within seconds, Lucas was on the roof, but by then the Mangiagoræ was gone, with no clue as to the direction he went. Lucas scanned the rooftops as far as the flare that David had shot would allow him, but there was nothing. Peering down into the streets below, where the auditors waited, also turned up nothing. With his prey having escaped, Lucas could only let out a cry of frustration as long and loud as a wolf's howl, letting the swords in his hand fall to the tiled rooftop beside his feet. Lucas fell to his knees. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Lisa." David put his hand on Lucas's shoulder. "We'll find him, Lucas, and we'll repay him tenfold for what he's done. I'll see him rot of hunger. And I'll make sure of it. Now come on. Lisa can't be doing too well. Remy, Isabel, I want you two to comb the district and set up a perimeter. He couldn't have gotten far." The two immediately set off while David helped Lucas to his feet, and together the two made their way back to the perimeter base on Somme. Upon seeing them, Auguste and Jonathan approached. "I suppose the suspect escaped?" Auguste inquired. "Yes, sir. I have Ponce and Maynard establishing a perimeter over the district." "Very well. Sir, request permission to accompany Delacroix to visit the victim of the attack." "Granted." The two went inside the house, David, being his first time on the scene of the attack, was disturbed by the damage that had been done. The furniture was wrecked, and both that and the walls were coated with blood splatters, as though Lisa had tried to put up a fight against the Mangiagoræ, despite her condition. It seemed as though she had come to the door, thinking Lucas had returned home, only to be met with that monster. The blood led all the way into the common room, where they found Lisa, lying on the floor, surrounded by a number of paramedics. She was breathing quite heavily, and it did not bode well due to the extensive wounds across her body. "How is she?" Lucas asked, the adrenaline loss having left him in an exhausted state. "Not good. Despite the Mangiagoræ having frequently cauterized the wounds it inflicted, she suffered extensive blood loss and tissue damage with third-degree burns. If we try to move her, I'm afraid we'll only be doing more harm than good. All we can do is try to ease her pain, but that isn't all. The attack induced her to go into labor. Due to the damage done, if she goes through with the birth, her body will give out, but if we stop it now, we might be able to save her." Lisa weakly lifted her hand towards Lucas upon seeing him. "Lucas, please save our child. I don't care if it's the last thing I do. Just please let our child live." Tears rolled down Lucas's cheek as he took her hand and tightly gripped it, though she was far too weak to grasp back. "Promise me," she whispered. "I promise. Our child will be born and will live a long, safe, and happy life," he replied back. "Thank you," she smiled, with tears rolling down her cheeks. The paramedics immediately went to work on Lisa. They injected her with a serum to numb her body. It was far too dangerous for her to give birth normally. Thus they had to perform a cesarean. In moments the team was able to open her womb, at which time sounded the cries of the baby. The team quickly wrapped up the procedure and did the best they could to close up Lisa's wound, while wrapping the baby in a cloth. "Congratulations, Mr. Delacroix. It's a healthy and unharmed girl," they said as they handed the child to him. She's so beautiful," he said, holding her close, though this did nothing to stop the baby's cries. Lisa faintly opened her eyes. Look, Lisa, it's our daughter. She's healthy and strong," he said, holding the baby close so as to allow Lisa the chance to touch her. Lisa gave a faint smile. We had a deal, remember? If it was a boy, we'd name him after my father, right? But if it was a girl, you wanted to name her after your mother. What was her name again?" "Alexandria," Lisa hoarsely whispered. "That's right, Alexandria. You see there?" Lucas said, speaking to Alexandria, who refused to stop crying. "Your mommy gave you a beautiful, strong name." Lucas lifted Lisa's hand and brought it to meet Alexandria's. "Look, it's your mommy. Say hello." But Alexandria would not stop crying. She's stubborn, just like me," he laughed as the tears continued to roll down his cheeks. Lisa's smile began to fade, as did what little strength Lucas could feel in her hand. "And she's so beautiful, just like you." His lips quivered, but Lisa did not respond. "Sir, we need you to move aside," the paramedic said as she placed a hand on Lucas's shoulder, but he refused to move. "She's so strong, just like you." David then helped the paramedic pull Lucas to his feet as the rest of the team began performing CPR and breathing exercises on Lisa, who, despite their best efforts, did not give a response. Even after 10 minutes of continuous compressions, breathing, and pulse checks, Lisa did not even so much as stir. With one last check for her pulse, the paramedic sighed, stood up, and spoke calmly to Lucas, who simply held Alexandria as coldly and without movement as though he were a statue. "I'm sorry, sir. She's gone." Lucas refused to say anything as David slowly led him from the room. But before they could reach the doorway, something caught David's eye from the fireplace. Taking the poker, he prodded away the ashes until he found it, a tiny glint of metal poked up from beneath a piece of charred wood. "What is that?" Moving away more ashes, it became quite clear. A syringe? Dear God, what did that monster do? He quickly drew one of his blades from his scabbard and turned to the lifeless body of Lisa. You're all going to have to leave, right now! The paramedics looked to him questioningly, taking no notice of the twitch in Lisa's fingers. With a groan, Lisa began stirring, causing the paramedics to quickly move away in panic. I'm so hungry. Please, something, anything, she moaned as she sat herself up. But she's dead. I checked her pulse. She's not dead. The Mangiagoræ must have injected her with its poisoned blood before he escaped. It takes time for the blood to take effect, but once it spreads, there's no reversing what it does to someone. Everyone, back away from her now! The paramedics quickly ran from the room, leaving only David, Lucas, and Alexandria, who by now had finally calmed down. Lucas, take Alexandria and get out of here. No. Here, hold her. And don't let anything or anyone harm her, he said, passing Alexandria to David. This is my responsibility. Lisa opened her eyes. Lucas, where are you? It's so dark. Please help me. At his side hung a holster. From it, Lucas pulled out a large caliber black revolver. On the bolt, written in gold, were the words, Ask of me, and I shall deliver thee redemption of your woes and sorrows. Lucas, what happened? Did you get the man who attacked me? Is Alexandria there? I don't know why, but suddenly I feel so hungry. Lisa got herself up to her feet, and though she had not yet regained her sight, she stumbled towards Lucas. David, please take Alexandria outside. That smell, whatever it is, it smells delicious. Lisa stumbled closer, her mouth now dripping with drool from hunger. It smells so good. Just let me have a bite. Lucas pulled back the hammer and gave careful aim at her. Tears rolled down his cheeks. After seeing what that monster had done to her once, and to think that he was so depraved as to put his poisoned blood in her body, made him feel like vomiting. Lisa's hands wrapped around his. Lucas, she said as the fog cleared from her eyes. But as Lucas gazed into them, he could no longer see the woman he loved. Instead, all that remained before him was a corrupted memory. He fired. The mercury-tipped bullet tore through her forehead, sending her flying to the wall. Her blood, now blackened with the poison of the Mangiagoræ, pooled onto the floor beneath her now still body. I'm so sorry, Lisa. Lucas's cries of anguish echoed out from the apartment and into the streets. Although no one spoke a word in response, knowing full well what had happened, Alexandria, still tucked safely in David's arms, began to cry once more.